Hello, everyone. I'm Meena Yagina, editor, CEO of India Parent Magazine here in the Bay Area. Today, I'm very happy and excited to announce that we will be presenting a series of interviews with experts on important and relevant topics that might be informative to our young parents here in the Bay Area. What is most important for a young parent? A good school and, of course, a good home for their children. Keeping this in mind, these experts will help you make a decision about your kids' future in an informed way. Today, we are presenting Mr. Terel Beppu, real estate specialist representing Sunnyvale and the surrounding areas. Mr. Beppu, a young parent himself, knows exactly what others like him would want in a good home. He will be answering some very important questions today that might be helpful to you in procuring your future home in a good neighborhood. Hello, Mr. Beppu. Welcome to India Parent Magazine.
Thank you, Meena.
For your time and for being here today to answer some relevant questions about homes.
My pleasure.
Could you please begin with a little about yourself and your company, sir?
Yes, I'm happy to. And thanks again, Meena, for having me. This is an honor. So I'm Terel Beppu. I grew up here in Cupertino. I went to Lincoln Kennedy in Monte Vista. So I'm a local boy, and I currently live and work in Sunnyvale as well. I started my career just after college as an accountant. I studied accounting in undergrad and became a CPA. I was with Deloitte & Touche right out of school and spent about a decade in a number of accounting and finance roles before I shifted gears and decided to pursue real estate in May of 2006. So it's been 14 or 15 years now. When I first got licensed to sell real estate, I aligned myself with Terrel, which is the largest, market share brokerage in Santa Clara County. It was a great place to learn. I was mentored by the CEO, Gino Blafari, who is now the president and CEO of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services since they bought Terrel. And he continues to be a mentor. So I left Terrel in April of 2018 after 13 years. And I formed my own agency, which is called the Beppu Group Real Estate Advisors. I've hung my license with a brokerage in San Francisco called Side. I am a broker myself, but I've chosen to outsource a lot of these brokerage functions to this outstanding organization. It's a venture-backed, very tech-forward real estate brokerage that's creating a ton of tools in-house to help us partner agents serve our clients better and more efficiently. It's been a really good transition for me. I'm having a lot of fun. In connection with that, I opened some office space right here in Sunnyvale, just a few hundred yards from my house. I'm on Saratoga Sunnyvale Road in the heart of 94087, Prime Sunnyvale. So yeah, I'm having a lot of fun and both living and working here.
Congratulations on your own
Thank you.
investment. And to begin with, because of this COVID effect, how has buying and selling become easier? Are there any good bargains out there? Have prices gone down? What do you think?
Yeah, COVID has had, I would say, an unexpected impact on the real estate market. And we'll talk about that. But your question about bargains, I haven't seen a bargain in a real bargain in probably 10 years. It's been a long time. And even now, they can be found, but even now it's hard. So when the shelter in place began, there was a lot of speculation on Wall Street, in the news, in the real estate community, that we were heading toward another freeze and to brace ourselves for impact. That's not what's been happening at all, to be honest. In the trenches, there are certainly parts of the county where homes are sitting on market longer and doing price reductions in order to incentivize buyers and get the property sold. But really, any communities that have great schools, Cupertino, Sunnyvale with Cupertino schools, or even Sunnyvale with good Sunnyvale schools, Los Altos, Saratoga, Palo Alto, right? The homes still sell quickly with multiple offers and usually well over list price, even in the middle of a pandemic, which is a little hard to believe. There are a few things that I think have been contributing to that. Mm-hmm. One of them is we've kind of had an inventory problem for a really long time. We always tend to have more people wanting to buy homes than we have homes available. And that's good for sellers and not so great, for buyers. But inventory remains really tight. So regardless of what level of demand there is with less supply, like that has a favorable impact on pricing. Also, interest rates are about as low as they've ever been. I'm actually personally in the middle of refinancing my home. I found a 15-year fixed loan at 2.25% with no points. In fact, a couple $1,000s back in credit. So like, you know, I'm in the industry, so I see these things all the time. And even myself, I'm like, this is too good to pass up. So we're refinancing ourselves. So with these really low rates, very little inventory, there's still a tremendous amount of demand to buy homes right now. And so it's not what we expected. You know, I had a listing in Campbell, West San Jose Campbell area there. And we put it on a Friday, which you normally wouldn't do. You put it on earlier in the week and advertise an open house, but we don't have open houses right now. So it doesn't matter what day you launch a listing. So we put it on Friday, and by Monday we had 3 offers over list price. And we accepted them. So 3 days, we had only 12 showings. 12 private showings yielded 3 offers. So, and that's Campbell without great schools. So, you know, Sunnyvale with great schools, it's pretty competitive still. I submitted an offer this morning actually on a property on Emperor, which is, you know, right next to Ortega Park. We haven't heard back yet, but we'll see how that goes. So yeah, there's a lot of people still transacting in spite of the pandemic. People who are able to view this, as difficult as it is to view it as a temporary thing, you know, when you're in it, it's hard to see it that way, but this too shall pass, right, as they say.
Absolutely.
And so for folks who are, let's say, pregnant and have been shopping for 6 months and written a half dozen offers and been outbid, yeah, it's kind of inconvenient that there's a pandemic now, but they're still pregnant and they still need a house. And so they're kind of forging ahead with their plans, and, you know, regardless of how sort of inconvenient that might be. It's also impacted how we do business in some ways, which we can talk about another time.
So basically you're saying the inventory of the homes have gone up?
So, sorry, I didn't catch that part of the question. Inventory is climbing a little bit now. So traditionally, absent a pandemic, this is the time of year that's sort of peak selling activity, right? Starting usually April, May is when we start to see inventory grow. People are trying to coordinate their transaction when kids are out of school to make moving easier and less intrusive on the family. And so this is a time of year we would normally see more inventory. And we are seeing more inventory, but it's being, you know, hampered a little bit by the pandemic. A lot of sellers, I think, or some sellers are fearful that this may not be the best time to sell. And if they sat down with a realtor and, you know, heard from people who are actually in the trenches, they would realize it's still a great time to sell your house. But there are some people who are holding back. And so that's, you know, continuing to sort of constrict our inventory. So there are more homes to look at today than there were 2 months ago. And that should kind of continue as we move through the summer. But we're not seeing a huge rise in inventory like we might normally expect. And I think it's pandemic related. So
could that be because they're expecting the prices to go up a little bit later on, you think?
There are, boy, it's hard to get in the minds of other people. I think there's probably more fear that prices will go down in the future than there is speculation that they'll go up, you know, sharply in the near future. I think that probably for every seller that's saying, let's wait and see, there's another seller saying, I don't want to wait because I have a feeling the stock market's going to take another big hit here when Q2 earnings releases start happening and the market starts adjusting to, you know, business operations during a pandemic. I mean, Q1 had 1 month effect, or 1 month affected by the pandemic. January and February were normal. Q2, all 3 months have been impacted by COVID. So revenue targets and earnings and so forth are going to be pretty dismal, I think. And so people are worried prices might go down. So from a seller standpoint, let's hurry up and get our house on the market now before that happens. So yeah, it just sort of depends on whether you're a buyer or seller and how averse you are to risk, I guess.
And I was wondering what's happening with the loans and appraisals. What's the scene there?
Yeah, so the lending world has had to adjust quite a bit. Initially, there was a lot of uncertainty around whether loans could be fulfilled. For example, part of getting a loan is having an appraisal done. The bank sends an appraiser out to the property to make sure it's worth, you know, what you're offering on it. If that home is occupied, there might be appraisers who feel that's unsafe. I don't want to go into somebody else's home right now. Today, of course, this is all happening, but when this first broke, none of us really knew. And so we actually had to create some new forms around the coronavirus that we've never had to use before. There are uncertainties that nobody could foresee. For example, a buyer and seller could be in contract, both be performing according to that contract and be ready to close escrow. But if the county recorder's office is closed as a government agency, then we can't close escrow, right? And it's not the seller's fault, it's not the buyer's fault, it's nobody's fault. So, excuse me, we had to create a form that addresses some of these uncertainties, and some of those are loan related. What if the lender won't send an appraiser? That's not the buyer's fault, but if they don't send an appraiser, the buyer can't perform, so they're technically in breach of the contract. So we've addressed this from a legal perspective with new form sets that help us. But appraisals are still happening. Loans are still closing. Some lending institutions have, tightened up their product offering. They may not be offering, like some banks aren't doing HELOCs anymore, at least temporarily, while, home equity is sort of in question. I think banks are fearing if home values do drop, we don't want to be giving out home equity loans. So, it's changed a little bit, but people are still transacting every day, and banks are still getting it done in about 30 days, which is very typical.
Could you tell me a little bit about how the agents or the real estate industry changed how they do business?
Yeah, it's been interesting. Just this very call, the nature of our call being done digitally is an example of, everybody's having to sort of adjust and learn some new technology. And so there's that. But from a practical standpoint, we can't do open houses right now. Okay, so how do we show property? Well, initially, when shelter in place first started, some very sort of strict guidelines came down, which said, if you want to show a property that's vacant, you can do that, but only to 2 people at a time. So 2 people plus their agent can be in a house at one time. And those both people had to be residing in the same household. If they weren't, then they had to be shown the house separately. So that's kind of initially how we were showing vacant properties. Properties that were occupied but were on the market could not be shown under any circumstances to anybody in person. So that had an interesting impact. If you got your home on the market and you're living in that home and you can't let anybody see it, there's not really any point in having it on the market, because nobody's going to spend $2 million without seeing the house in person, right? So because of that, we saw a lot of those occupied listings withdraw or cancel their listing, with plans of relisting sometime. So we already have tight inventory. We saw it get even tighter when all the occupied homes came off the market, which was great for vacant active listings, because now there's less competing listings, right? So a lot of those vacant properties ended up getting sold, which is part of the reason we have such a tight inventory now. Many times I'll show up at a property to show it and not meet a buyer there, either by myself, and I will call them up I'll Zoom them on my phone, and I'll walk through the property showing them, showing them virtually the house without them having to leave their living room and expose them or their children to, potentially to the virus or whatever. So there's things we've done, like conveniences we've done to try to make things easier and more approachable for our clients. Instead of open houses, we'll kind of use those same hours, 1 to 4, and we'll take appointments to see the property privately, 2 people at a time, during kind of those same hours. But kind of the most common mode right now is it's on lockbox, it's vacant, you can show it any time, and it's just being shown privately instead of through open houses.
Do you think this change kind of helped you in a way to have a more good relationship with your clients?
I don't know if it's improved my relationship with my clients. It definitely has us working together in ways that are a little different, right? I mean, 15 years ago when I got into this business, I would get my car washed on Fridays because I was likely meeting somebody on Saturday morning, and they're going to jump in the back seat and we're going to drive around and look at 10 properties, right? That's kind of how we did it. These days, it's sort of transitioned to really open houses, right? I mean, the life cycle of a listing is it comes on say, a Tuesday or a Wednesday on MLS strategically, and you have a few days then to advertise for the open house on the weekend, and then you'll look at offers on the Tuesday or Wednesday following. So the entire time it's on the market is, say, a week. Now we're getting in the car and going and showing properties privately to people. So it's changed a lot about the way that we're showing properties. But I'm spending more time with my clients, because instead of them calling me on Sunday saying, Terrell, I walked through an open house on Saturday. We're here again now. We think we want to ride on it. Can you come see it? Every property that any of my clients are seeing, I let them in. I had to go take them there and let them in. So it has us spending probably more time together instead of them discovering properties online and through open houses and then calling upon us when they need some help, which has been fun. It's been fun to spend time with clients in a way that we haven't in a while. So.
Sure. What exactly does a buyer need to do to get ready to purchase a home at this point of time?
Yeah, that's good. That hasn't changed much. So usually the process is kind of one of the most important things to do is to get pre-approved for a mortgage. And there's a few reasons for us pushing for that to happen early. The first is, although there are online loan calculators that you can plug in your income and debt and assets and so forth, will kind of spit out, what you should qualify for. A lot of times when you actually get down to it and working with a lender, you can qualify for a lot more than you thought you could.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, that's usually the case. Sometimes you can't qualify for as much as you thought you could. And so by getting pre-approved up front, it ensures that we're spending time in a good way. We're focusing on the right neighborhoods and shopping in the right areas and so forth. The other reason it's a good idea to do it up front is the deliverable of that process is a pre-approval letter. And anytime we submit an offer, we like to include a copy of that letter, right? It tells the seller that we not only want to buy your home, but we can, right? We've been vetted by a lender and they're saying they'll give us a loan. So that's important to be able to produce that. And before you write any offers, you need to have that in place. And then lastly, this is kind of related to the second reason, but things happen, even in a pandemic, things happen in real estate very quickly often. So we always say time is the essence. We might see a property on Sunday together and offers are due on Tuesday or Wednesday. That's probably not the time to say, gee, how are we going to pay for this thing? So there's a lot of paper to get through. And so it's helpful to have your loan and your financing all lined up ahead of time. Because frankly, you may not have time to get pre-approved before offers are due. So that's the starting point, is to talk to a lender. And you can do that before you've even engaged with a realtor, right? A lot of times your lender that you talk to that might have been referred to you by parents or friends or colleagues will say, hey, if you don't have an agent, here's a great agent. So some people find their agent that way. Some people, traditionally found their agents at open houses if they had questions and established a rapport. Sometimes people come to me before they have a loan. So they find their agent first and then I refer them to a lender. So it doesn't really matter which direction that happens, but engaging with some professionals that you either through online reviews or referrals can get comfortable with, that they're on your side, they have your best interests at heart, that you can trust and that you like. We want to work with people we like. So having a good lender and a good agent are kind of central to a home buying strategy. And the rest of the stuff can kind of get worked out, from there. So that's the starting point.
Actually, I was just wondering about this. Would you say, with your experience, that this would be a good time to either buy or sell a house?
I do. I would say it's not. So the pendulum's kind of always swinging, right? Buyer's market, seller's market, buyer's market, seller's market. And right now, we're still unequivocally in a seller's market. It's not as strong or as ferocious and frothy as our market can sometimes be. But fact is, a lot of homes are still selling very quickly with multiple offers over list price. So you could argue it's not a bad time to sell. It's a relative question. Would it be a better time to sell a year from now? Maybe. We've had 10 or 12 years of rapid appreciation, right? Double-digit growth, such that most homes are worth twice what they were worth 10 years ago. That's not sustainable. So you could make an argument housing prices are going to be softening, just to sort of normalize. So it's kind of hard to say, but right now in this moment with the information we have, it's a great time to sell a property. Right now in this moment with the information we have, it's a good time to buy a property too. Rates are historically low. We talked about what a great loan products are out there. I'm refinancing myself at 2.25%. I don't know that I'll ever see a fixed rate loan lower than that, right? So that's a good reason to buy, because that's something you lock in for 30 years and realize savings on interest for 30 years. Sometimes life circumstances dictate a need for a housing change. It's not always. We don't always buy and sell when it's ideal, just like we don't always buy and sell stock at the right time. I've made my share of mistakes with that. So, divorces, job changes, transfers, deaths in the family, you know, so there's different reasons people are transacting all the time, but volume is down a bit because of the pandemic, but nothing like what we thought was going to happen. It's still very much a robust real estate market.
Good to know.
Yeah.
And finally, I was just wondering if you would be able to sum up maybe 3 good reasons for my readers to invest in Sunnyvale.
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I love Sunnyvale. We have nice parks. Depending which pocket of Sunnyvale you're in, you probably have really good schools.
Mm-hmm.
9487, there's attendance at, of course, a lot of the Cupertino schools, and then even some of the best Sunnyvale schools,
Mm-hmm.
you know, are also in this zip code. So schools, we've got a great downtown district coming together with high density residential and dining and shopping and new movie theater. I think it's an AMC theater, Whole Foods.
Mm-hmm.
So all this stuff's going in downtown Sunnyvale, which is, I think, going to be great for the surrounding community.
Mm-hmm.
Where I live, you know, less than a mile from the new Apple headquarters, which is technically in Cupertino, but we're adjacent to there. And that's had an impact on our local housing prices too. So there's great employers nearby. I love it. I mean, I grew up in Cupertino, just about 3 miles from here,
Mm-hmm.
the house I grew up in, and I'm still here. So I still really enjoy it.
And I think there are also some wonderful preschools, private preschools out there like Appleseed, Challenger, and Stratford, if I may say so. And thank you so much, Terrel, for meeting with us today. And I would just like to add that Terrel is a great father. I've met him personally, and whenever I would like to talk to him more about his ad or something, he would say, "Meena, not today. I need to pick up my kids, or I'm in Lake Tahoe with my kids ice skating." So. Great father, and any advice from him as a father would really is an honest opinion. I think. Thank
very
you.
Generous of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Meena, take care.
You too. Thanks.
Bye-bye.